Thank you, Laurie, as always, for a wonderfully exciting introduction. So we're just trying to keep everybody on their toes. You might be thinking that I'm Jackie and that I'm moderating this panel, but I'm not. We decided to do a little swapsy here. So I'm Barbara Marshall. I'm with HP. I lead our media and entertainment strategy, primarily for our Z workstations. Been in the M&E industry for more decades than I would like to admit. Goes back to last century. That's scary, isn't it? And I'm really honoured to have been asked by Jackie to moderate this panel. We'll do some introductions, but just before that, the purpose of this panel is, as Laurie said, is to really dig into how do we empower unrepresented, poorly represented, less privileged people and communities to bring them into the industry, particularly in the context of virtual production. And we'll talk about some of the barriers to entry and how to mitigate them. So in terms of introductions, first of all, we have Tupac Martir from Satore Studios, all the way from Portugal, no less. And we have Dani Pilukas from Machina. She's the director of physical production. And then, as I mentioned, we have Jackie Cooper, who's the co-founder of CG Pro, the school, and CG Empowers. And I'm going to start, Jackie, by asking you to talk a little bit about CG Empowers and what your goal was, and then I'll bring the others into the conversation.
Sure. Well, thanks again for moderating. I appreciate it. With CG Pro, I noticed that a lot of the people that were taking our training programs, and I love you all, it was just mostly white men. And, I'm married to a white man, love white men, but like, yeah, exactly. It's weird, right? But I believe that this technology is so important to be getting out to diverse groups, to women, to people who aren't as fortunate. And so I felt like it was really important to start a diversity program. And the thing that I liked about CG Pro is that it's a vehicle for being able to properly upskill and train and provide opportunities for placement. And, we even do internships from time to time and bring, we have a vet with us as an intern right now. And so we're working on providing opportunity for people to come into this new space with this new technology and be able to use it in multiple industries. And so I felt like it was important enough to start digging into what diversity means and what that could look like in terms of education.
Great. Thanks, Jackie. So to start, we often talk about democratization of content creation, but usually when we talk about that, we're talking about the technology and the software. However, even with software like Unreal Engine, Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve being free or almost free, that still doesn't mean access to all, equal access to all. And of course, they're not the only barriers to entry. So what are some of the challenges facing the creative industry? And Tupac, maybe we'll start with you.
I think that, just really quick element, and we were talking about this earlier with Jackie, is, so I'm 46 years old. I started coding at the age of 6 in Mexico City. My family was financially challenged. We were not poor because I was loved by my mother. Therefore, I was not poor. I was just financially challenged. And I used to bag groceries all weekends to make enough money to buy magazines to learn how to code. And then my mom will help me by paying 1 hour every Wednesday for me to go and test my code. And that's how I got into the industry. That I'm not even in this. At the time, I thought it was cool to build my own games. But if you think of that type of struggle and that type of thinking and that type of element, and to figure out how do I bring all these people that are unseen, because that's the truth. They're completely unseen by everybody else. I have this knack of going to see shows and grad programs, usually in the most unusual schools. to see if I can find these gems, if I can find these people that have all these different views on creativity, but their views are never coming out. Their views are stuck somewhere, and so therefore that there's no diversification in the way that we are applying and we're trying to fix these problems because we're seeing them through the same lenses that we all know. But the moment you bring that disruptive element into it and you apply a completely different way of viewing it, then it changes the dynamic of how you're going to solve it.
Absolutely. And you picked on or hit on two issues as I see it. It sounds like we're in the fortunate position that your mother supported what you were doing and found a means for you to go and check your code. What if you were in a family that just didn't see or didn't understand what you were doing?
I mean, I would tell you that's what happens to 95% of the people that we think about. You know,
Exactly.
there's no mechanisms for them to come out. There's no mechanisms to things around it.
One of the things I think when we spoke too, and I think like virtual production is an interesting thing because there's so many entry from different industries, right? Like I had a very non-traditional entry into the industry, and I think it's an opportunity for more voices and different people. And I think that's one of the things when you mentioned your struggle of like how you got here, man, you get those guys on set though, and they're gonna work their arses off, right? I mean, that's one of the things that for me, when we were at Warner Brothers in Leavesden, they have an internship program there, and they had 3 assistants that worked with us. And the amazing amount of effort those people put in, the effort they're still putting in. One of them wrote me on LinkedIn the other day and said, "Where's my next opportunity?" Like, it is an incredible difference of the amount of work that people are willing to put in. I'm not saying that people that came up in privileged backgrounds don't work hard, but it is a difference, I think. I think there's a difference.
I would say that the biggest difference, that, once again, as someone who, I mean, I learned my entire craft. I went to school in the U.S., thankfully, because of a scholarship by the president. But I learned my entire craft working in Mexico City. And, we were having a joke about this, that my first job, I got paid $100 a month to work, and that didn't include them giving me food or transport or whatever. So by the time you actually took all that into consideration, I probably got paid like $50. But the amount of information that I learned and how much I wanted to learn, and the idea that I brought, and this is the part that I love, right? I bring to everything that I do my knowledge of, I went to art school. Then using that craft to create elements, physical elements. And if you look at that, then it's like I went to art school, I started working on this, I moved to the opera house, I learned physical, I went into become art director at MTV, and just bringing all these things, and at the same time always thinking about code, thinking about technology and how that could eventually approach. It's when you're chasing for food every single day of your life, you will be chasing constantly to see how else you can improve something.
And I think that's the thing. When we bring those diverse voices to the table, we open up more stories from a creativity standpoint, right? The more people that are in the conversation, the more stories that are available, the more things that you think about. Our conversation the other day, my brain went, oh, I hadn't thought of that. I talk a lot about, especially in the United States, one of the things that the live events industry is really fighting for is fair wages that allow people who are not from privileged backgrounds to enter into this role. But as you spoke about, and I spoke about like the ridiculous wages we made, because I came up as a performer, in theater, right? Right? When you speak about those ridiculous wages that we made and somehow we still made it work and we made it happen, there's also a hunger that comes from people who have come through those phases. My friend says hire a theater person and they will always make it work. Right?
I also think that it's because we're so used to working with low budgets in theaters. It's the truth. You come up with things like, okay, I mean, I'll never forget, we were doing the show and I needed to get some moving lights and we couldn't afford moving lights. So I got a bunch of Source 4s and then I put fishing wire string from all of them, and I hung them directly from the cable rather than from the clamp. And then I had them all with me. And then the moment that I needed it, I would just pull the fishing wire and it would create this amazing movement in space.
So I hate to burst your bubble, but actually at the BBC, we have the same problem. I could tell you about the children's department, which had no budget, like having to shoot at the director's aunt's house. Anyway, It's interesting that you bring up the budgetary, the financial side of things. My background as an economist means that I'm always looking like, where's the money? We talk about the altruistic benefits, of course, of having more diverse voices. I don't think there's anybody here, I would hope there's nobody here that would dispute the altruistic benefits. But let's dig in a little bit to the economic side of things, like, because at the end of the day, money talks. So what are the financial benefits of, and maybe we'll start with Jackie.
I was just going to quickly say, imagine if you had someone on your crew who knew how to use fishing line to move lights. Or I one time threw a screensaver up on a projector with a whole bunch of haze in a room to get, windows. That's flying through an audience.
Creative ingenuity, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, Jackie, do you want to comment a little bit on the, from a business point of view, why does it make sense beyond the altruism?
Yeah, I think when you're in such cutting edge tech, having creativity. I don't know if Dani mentioned that she used to be an Imagineer, but she used to be an Imagineer, and
Did you know I used to be an Imagineer?
yeah, I heard that somewhere, and being able to bring all of that knowledge to the forefront of everything we're doing in virtual production is priceless, and having all of these different perspectives and views, and Tupac is an amazing artist and does and is able to come from that unique perspective, and ultimately an audience wants that kind of creativity. You need that kind of cutting edge. If you're going to stay on the bleeding edge of technology, you need that kind of perspective and voice, and I think it does financially pay off in the end.
And Tupac, do you have any comments on the financial benefits of having diverse inputs?
Oh, I can definitely tell you that. And it has nothing to do with, I would tell you the financial element of it comes, so at the height of the studio, we were 49 with 10 freelancers. So that makes it about 59 people. And we had 36 different nationalities. 65% of my team was women. And so you could throw a problem at all of them, and everyone will come away with a completely different solution. And that, for me, is the financial ability of it. It has nothing to do with paying more money or less money. It has this idea of, I'm getting different voices and different ways of solving a problem that I might have never thought about because of my background. Or maybe an architect wouldn't think about that, And so the opportunity of solving problems with different perspectives, because of, we had an Icelandic guy, we had someone else from Norway, we had someone from Thailand, we had someone from India. So all these different visions of how you solve something is actually a lot more powerful because of that.
And that's exactly the point you were making, Dani, isn't it? That you had weirdly fishing skills.
Right. Well, and I think the gentleman from Microsoft yesterday talked about how we're looking for more data from AI to make sure every movie's a hit. I won't mention we maybe wouldn't have gotten Rocky Horror Picture Show or Jaws or a couple of really great movies. But without AI, you can put more perspectives at your table. Right? You can have more people who represent different audiences who say, that sounds interesting. That sounds like something my friends would want to go see. And you can get that kind of data from your team. So I think that benefits as you have more people. There was a film that came out, I don't know, it's got to be 10 years ago now, that was fairly offensive to women. And I remember there being this thing where it was like, who was at that table that thought that was going to be fine, right? There were no women on that production team, I guarantee it, because someone would have gone, excuse me, I have a question.
Yeah, the men might be saying the same thing about Barbie, but anyway.
That's all right, we have financial power now.
So just shifting gears a little bit, many companies, HP being one of them, have formal diversity and inclusion programs, and both with schools and colleges and within, like whether it's for recruiting or promotion or mentoring. So what I'm curious about is each of you, whether you can talk about the programs that you've seen and admire, or maybe even programs yourself that you're employing. And obviously, Jackie, that's the purpose of CG Empowers. But again, I'll start with Tupac at the end.
So we have, we've been running now for the past 5 years, a mentorship program in the studio. And what we found amazing, I mean, it's been every single cohort that we have, it's always very different from the ones that we began. We used to hire a lot of people from architecture because of the big thing that we were building. And then there's a lot of people coming in because of the stuff that we were doing in VR. Our latest cohort, which is the one that we have right now, it's all women. It's a Turkish woman, a Portuguese woman, a Mexican woman, a Dutch woman, and a woman from Taipei.
So I'm going to be a little bit challenging here. Like, is it good to go from one extreme to the other?
It's big, but it's not us. It's actually all the applications that we received were all women.
Oh, wow.
We didn't receive a single application from a man. Okay. And the part of it that it's really interesting is we're able to start looking at this at these people in terms of going, right, what do they need? What do they want? How can we help? How can we help them step into their career? And is there, like, I have one woman from Portugal that she comes from computer science. She had no idea that this job existed. She thought she was going to go into financing and writing things for banks. And she found out about all this, and she's like, I want to learn how to model. I want to learn how to do this. I want to learn how to do that. And I'm sitting there looking at her code, and I'm going to my CEO. I was like, Ruben, when we finish the mentorship, can we hire her?
Yeah, that's a really good point about people just not having visibility of what careers exist beyond their own experience. So how did she find you?
Well, I do a lot of these things, and I speak a lot in a lot of places. And I went to speak to a very specific conference in Lisbon about what we do. And it was the people that were coming were all computer scientists.
So, okay, so in terms of like recommendations to people in the audience, whether they're looking to get in or whether they're looking to recruit, it sounds like you're saying that this kind of forum is a good way of getting...
This kind of forum is great, but actually my big thing is, once again, everyone in this space and everyone that will be at CGRAF and everyone that will be at Framework, you kind of know. The question is, how often do you completely step away from where you know? You know, I go and talk to theater schools about the advantages of immersive technology. I go in and speak to people that are creating games, and I go, what you're doing in gaming can actually be done for 150,000 screaming fans for Beyonce. And you're gonna get a kick out of that. You know, and that's the part that people understand. And I think, you know, going back to what we were talking about earlier, you know, I had a brilliant mother who loved me to bits, and who was smart enough to help me move forward with what I thought I could do, right? I think about the challenges of a lot of these people that we're talking about who their first thought is not the craft, it's putting food on the table, right? And I was dumb enough or smart enough, depending on how you want to look at it, that I was happy to live sometimes with $10 a week. And if that meant that I had to drink water and just eat bread or eat rice in order to make it, I was willing to put that sacrifice, but that was only me.
Yeah, you didn't have a family to support or whatever. So Dani, can you talk a little bit about programs that you've seen that you admire to really help bring people into the industry?
Yeah, I think that the pandemic and going to things that were virtual opened up a lot of spaces. So Lux right now partners with Epic and does in-camera visual effects masterclasses. We did a full 6. There's a set of 2 that's going a 2-day event that's going right now. They're virtual and online, which opens them up to a lot of different countries. There are many, many people staying up very late at night to come to that program. Right now, I talked to our director of education, and she said, like, the largest group is from India that they're seeing, right? So I think that opportunity to, there are still opportunities of access, but that opportunity, if you can get that access to see those things, and like Tupac, I believe strongly in, I go and talk. I think sometimes it's seeing someone who looks like you for the opportunity to believe you can do that thing. So I think that makes a big difference. But and obviously, you know, Epic and Unreal, what they offer as far as the opportunity to, you know, I know a lot of younger students that I'm seeing, some still in high school, who are really excited about what's available to them because, you know, they are playing with these tools. So I strongly when I speak about diversity, I talk a lot about going younger, because by the time you get someone in college or you get someone who's already learning their computer skills, often those classes are already not diverse. So you got to inspire people younger, and I think that Epic's doing a lot of work to do that in a younger generation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can all point to Epic and their fellowship and their grant system. We work with a lot of other ISVs, not just Epic Games, and a lot of them have got programs that HP gets involved with to support schools as in the British definition of a school, as in under 18, as opposed to universities. And then HP works with the Historically Black Colleges and Universities organization, and we actually completely redesigned our intern recruitment program a few years ago, recognizing that if you keep going to the same places, you're going to get the same people. So we proactively now work with different universities to recruit our interns. Jackie, do you want to talk a little bit about other programs that you admire and would like to see more of?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about CG Empowers actually for a second, because sort of informally, we've been putting one person per course through our program. And some of them have become interns. We have actually hired one of them. But the purpose of it is to give people who are really hungry and really want to learn the opportunity to join us. And recently, I think we're in the final stages of working with a company that does virtual machines at an affordable price. And so we're going to be able to like go to schools where maybe someone is really, really talented, but they just don't have a good computer at home because they can't afford one, and they'll be able to VPN into it and take our program. And so we're going to begin offering this as an option. And for me, CG Empowers, it was like a big barrier to entry. And so now that we have that, we can start going to different sort of places where they might not have the support they need in terms of hardware, but now they will be able to. And so, and then being able to, like, I am actually getting asked all the time now for students. I sort of do like a bit of a placement program as well. And it's still a bit informal, but I'm getting it more and more formal. And that means that I can, if they're talented and they work hard, then I'm able to sometimes actually get them their first job, or make recommendations for my contacts in the industry. And so I feel like getting their foot in the door and the relationship piece is something that we can help with, because CG Pro is a growing community. And so we're able to, like, a lot of people who join CG Pro, we're able to people do business together. People become really good friends and help each other, and it's a collaborative piece to what I'm trying to bring to visual effects and to filmmaking.
But do you think, I was just thinking about this, because I speak almost every year at this university about lighting design. And every time I walk into the room, there'll be 30, 35 students that want to become lighting designers. And I always tell them the same thing: out of all of you, one of you will be a designer. Some of you will be associates. Most of you will just be part of the industry, and some of you won't be part of this industry, because there's 35 of you in this school, and multiply that by the 20 other schools that are preparing lighting designers. And for order to that to exist, please don't believe the hype that your teachers are telling you. There is a space for all of you, but not all of you can actually be the main person. And I think it's very important when you start talking to students and to other people, to explain them that there are different roles, that just being the director or just being is not it's not the only career path to it. There's all sorts of different jobs that are as fulfilling as that one, that allows you to be part of the industry, that allows you to grow within the industry without having to get to that top job from the beginning.
Absolutely. So I think we are running out of time. We want to take some questions from the audience, if you guys are willing. But the last, I'd like a comment from each of you. Do you have an ask of the audience? What would you like to see more of, or people doing? Jackie.
Well, if any of you guys out there want to donate to CG Empowers, feel free. We also did a free summit a couple weeks ago, where Dani gave a lovely talk on producing, and we had I think 25 speakers, maybe more, and all of those workshops, for a $97 donation, you can pick them up. And the idea is we actually raised enough money to put a student through our program, and so we're going to be announcing, an application process very soon. And I'm very excited to just be able to multiply what we're doing already and be able to make a bigger impact. So that's kind of, I guess, go check out cgempowers.org.
$97 bargain. Dani?
I think that one of the things we talk a lot about in the diversity space is like, oh, you need to do these 5 things. And it's always the same 5 things. So I'd like to look for the opportunity to see what you can do that isn't the thing you've heard everyone tell you to do over and over again, right? Talk to someone who's outside of your circle and find out. So I think these events where you talk to different people are a big thing, but also go back to your organizations and have those conversations. Call the IT guy and have a conversation, right? So I think you find spaces by even looking at diversity of background, because I think one thing we haven't talked about is neurodiversity, which also, especially in this industry, a guy on Unreal, like there is a lot of opportunity for people who don't have the social skills that get us here, right? So there's so many versions of what diversity means. That's what I think.
Yeah,
to look
very,
out for.
very good point. Tupac.
I'm one of those people sometimes. But I just I think that there's a lot of opportunities that. So I'll give you an example. It was when I was mentoring this girl from Mexico, and she was trying to figure out what to study her master's, right? And she came to me with the typical universities you will expect her to do. And I went, all right, that's great. But if you're trying to ask for a scholarship, there's 1,000 people that are asking for that single scholarship. So have you thought about Hungary? Have you thought about Latvia? Have you thought about Norway? Have you thought about all these other places? Like look at Holland. You know, some of the most creative people in visual arts are coming out of Amsterdam. Have you thought about going to Utrecht? She's like, no. And I was like, what? She goes, oh, wait a second. There's 3 scholarships to go study in Budapest. I go, how many people do you think apply for that scholarship? It's true. And so I'm like, you have a better chance, and you're going to get a completely different education in the way that a Hungarian professor is going to teach you about it because of the way that they were raised. And therefore, you're going to be able to have a completely different view on what is happening, how you can actually develop a new career.
I love that. Diversity goes both ways. Yeah, good point. Okay, so does anybody in the audience have any questions? Great.
So just while I'm walking over, I had a question for you guys, because just from the industry perspective, I see the output of the diversity challenges, which is whenever I'm trying to put a panel together, I can never find diverse resources because either they're not senior enough or they are shy about speaking. And so I have to work a lot harder to get them. And I just wanted to know, I don't know how to solve for that necessarily, because I do spend extra time doing that.
So I'm
wondering if you had thoughts on that.
Yeah, I have strong opinions on this because I'm often having to put panels together as well. I think it's 2 separate issues. One thing, I often put together a CTO panel. Now, that panel invariably is all men. And of course, I'm very conscious of the fact that it's all men, and I get criticized for the fact that it's all men. There are very few, if any, female CTOs, and I am not willing to change the panel to be CTO and a few other people so that I can hit the diversity. I want a CTO panel. So that to me is a separate issue. Why do we not have female? Why do we not actually have culturally and ethnically diverse CTOs? Let's discuss that. That's a different issue, but I'm not going to change my panel just to accommodate. Then the second issue that you make, Laurie, and I personally am one of those people, was one of those people. I've really had to learn in this job to pretend and not get nervous about speaking publicly. And that is really hard. I mean, most people are nervous and don't feel comfortable getting up on stage, but it comes with practice. So
can I just briefly, when I started at Lux, we were doing a behind the scenes video, and it was a day I had been on stage all day and I wasn't looking my finest, and I said, I don't want to be on video looking like this. And my boss at the time, Phil Gollar, who I think there's a reason that Lux is diverse as it is, said to me, I want your voice in this video. So like if I need to go hire a makeup artist or like let you go home for an hour to change, whatever you need to do to feel comfortable, I want your voice. And so I remember that when those opportunities come up, because like there's a reason I didn't continue in acting. I don't like hearing my voice come back to me, like, but I recognize there's an importance to those voices and the other women in our organization, because now that I've started to do things, I get those offers, but then I also want to spread that. I want to have Shiva show up. I want to have Nicole show up. I want these other people who are in our organization to also come and speak.
For me, as you can tell, I'm very comfortable being just on this thing. It's one of those things that you learn because you have to have confidence. Because as a Mexican man, you have to have that confidence. You have to have that feeling of going, no, I am as good as you are. I'm actually better than all of you. In that sense, you have to have that feeling of it. There's a joke right now going on something that's really, really big, and it changed how many people understand architecture, I guess is the best way of putting it. And I loved it because there was an article on the New Republican talking about it and boasting this thing about Americanism and look at this. And I truly, and I really, and everyone's like, oh, Americans since since 1770 have been shown that, and basically he has this entire rant. And I remember reading it and sending it to somebody, and they were like, should we tell him that a Mexican designed it?
That's amazing. Well, I think it's a pipeline challenge, and I even have done things like asked colleagues to just bring a woman or diverse resource on stage with them, because I also feel like diverse resources need to see themselves on stage. Mm-hmm. So even if they're not talking, I swear to God, even if they're just standing next to their colleague and hanging out, just so we get inspired. You know what I mean?
I think oh, sorry, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something, which was not only if you can train diverse voices in this industry, not only will they show up and offer great views, but they'll also make their own indie films. They'll also show themselves represented inside with their own stories and their own voices. And that's one of the things. I think everyone has a story and everyone should have a voice. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like properly upskilling and training them, which is what CG Empowers is trying to do on a mass scale, that's my dream anyway, is to be able to offer people in this time where, technology is becoming so democratized, to actually be able to have anyone be able to show their story and then inspire that next generation as well.
That's great. Oh, now some hands were here? Okay. And by the way, you don't have to worry about Tupac in America. Because I thought you were a gangster when I first heard working on you.
I think the line is immigrants, we get the job done. Thank you so much. Dani, I heard your talk at CG Summit, and now that I know you're a theater kid, I love you even more. This is hyper specific and personal, but the personal is political, so there we go. Can you speak to available resources for kind of people pivoting mid-career? I know of the Lynn Shelton grant, which is for like a first-time female filmmaker later in life, but it's kind of an interesting problem I find myself in, whereas a lot of these accessible internships and kind of mentorship programs are very much geared, and for good reason, towards a younger generation who are more computer literate, who have the years to grow up into it. But there's an interesting dilemma with people trying to pivot into this career where we already have the student loans and we're already supporting families, and we either don't qualify for the bottom basement internship jobs, or very practically, we can't live on $10 a day because we're supporting families or, paying off our previous careers as actors. So do you know of anything about that? I would really appreciate that.
It's funny you say that, because in our last cohort, I actually had a 36-year-old Indian woman, and I had a 52-year-old Pakistani man who were actually transitioning and trying to pivot their careers. And a lot of what I used to talk to them about was, okay, most of them, funny enough, came from theater because why not? But I know people, especially in pandemic. I remember sitting with a lot of people that were going, right, we can't do any shows. There are no concerts going out. I was like, yeah, but you're a great networking person. So why don't you take the skills that you know about how to run 350,000 lights and put it to position where you can move it into this side? I speak a lot to fashion houses and fashion students, and I keep going, learn how to use Cloth 3D, learn how to use Marvelous, because we're moving to a space in which eventually we are going to look at how clothes live in these other areas. You look at DressX, you look at how much money they've raised, all the partnerships that are happening with Gucci. And I go, there's all sorts of different careers that if you're not looking at how your physical work can actually transform into a digital and how that digital currency will actually become important later. So I think there's a lot of skills that you'll have right now that all you have to do is just find that thread that actually allows you to use those same skills to keep you going while at the same time pivoting to other things that you want to do.
Yeah, I think they're hard to find. About 10 years ago, I had a friend who really tried to talk me into joining the DGA trainee program. He's like, you'll be a great AD, it's just 3 years in the program, you're a PA, and that's all you have to do, and then you're gonna have this great career. And I went, my feet can't do that anymore, right? I was a PA in my 20s. It's not a thing that I can still do, right? So I think it is a challenge of a mid-career switch. And I think that was, for myself, coming from theater and Imagineering into virtual production, there's an opportunity right now of a more open space. There's more roles that people are looking for. The reality of virtual production is it is live production in many ways. It is very different from traditional production in the way the technology must work in the day. So I think that that's opening spaces. And so I do think the things like the CG Pro classes and the Epic classes that are available, which can be done in off time, give you that opportunity to learn that next thing and then build into a community which does that switch.
Yeah, I just wanted to address, as I go over to the next question, but also that we are in a time that many of my colleagues and I have been calling the Great Reset, where everybody is sort of in between jobs, because of the strike, because of layoffs and other things. So now is a great time to upskill, I think, and get more things under your belt. Hello, sir.
Thank you very much. It's been a very informative panel. So the elephant in the room is the augmentation of these generative processes, which in the VFX industry we've been sort of working, in our various solves for effects. But I just wondered if, this is a point where all the people we told should have been coders. They might be better off being electricians. That being said, I do see this new development path opening up to everyone across the planet. Have you guys seen the effects of yet? I know it's really early days, but I guess what I'm asking is, what do you think the effects will be on getting a wider net to increase inclusivity and diversity in this particular field?
So we were having a laugh about this about 5 months ago, because I receive about 15 to 20 resumes, CVs every week of people asking for a job. And I started receiving things going, I know how to use Maya. I know how to use Houdini. I know how to prompt. And I was like, and it wasn't one single case. It was various people sending that prompting is now become a skill, right? And at first I thought it was a joke. And it's not a joke. But not only that, I was talking to some friends at the New York Times, and we were having a long conversation about how to use AI in journalism and the things that it can do. And I was like, you guys are journalists. You should be able to write a specific long paragraph about what you want, not just put blue elephant, and like, which is one of the, and so I think that all this new models that are coming out, and I refuse to call them AI because they're not intelligent. They're just models that are coming out, are great as a tool. I use them. God knows we have 4 machines that are training 4 models of our own for the things that we need to do. But I use them as a way that I can reference images and I can reference ideas to my team, so that it's actually faster for them to understand what I want to do. You know, I create complete storyboards, complete ideas into it, and I put them into Photoshop and put them together, and I go, here it is, here's an idea, please follow this, and so that, because that actually means I don't have to go through Google to try to find the same bloody 250 images that I get from every single bloody brief, you know. I'm tired of seeing Macau. I'm tired to see James Turrell on every single bloody brief that I receive, you know. For fuck's sakes, go and create these images and then show them to me. Go, okay, that's what you really want to do, you know. So I think that the ability of having all tools gives you something that is really interesting. But don't think, you know, don't think that that's the final product. Look at them as, here's a resource that you never had. Here's a bunch of knowledge that you didn't know that you had because you didn't have it. You're not going to read all these books. You're not going to put all these things. You don't have the knowledge of 1,500 years of art history, right? But you have the ability of use these tools and actually generate elements that would allow you to construct the stories and tell to people and understand those bits, right? I'm not a musician. I'm far from a composer, but I know the music that I like. So I spent the time with musicians to record the music that I wanted, and I created a model that allows me to compose music. You know, and I created a new skill that I didn't have.
I think that was a thing. I was speaking yesterday to someone about the AI element, and he said the thing is that AI can only do what has been done. It's based on data. The data has to exist. It can only do what has been done. There will not be innovation. There will not be new ideas that come out of an AI model. What we can do is use AI to remind us of what we've done to get us to the next level. I mean, I use it to prompt. I didn't know I should add that to my resume. Because sometimes I get stuck with writer's block, right? I'm sitting here and I cannot figure out how to start a conversation, start the thing I want to say. No, it's me and my
Just hold the mic up higher.
Yep.
'cause
No, thank you.
It's the antenna. There you go.
Got you. So I think it's, you know, I recognize that I can use it to move myself further faster, but I still need myself in the model. So I think that's the important thing for me of the fear aspect of it, is like there still have to be humans in the model.
It's I have this entire thing that say that technology is a character in the story. I don't believe it's an enabler. I truly believe that it's a character.
It won't be the protagonist.
Exactly. It's always a sidekick.
Yeah.
It's Cheech and Chong. I think it actually has the biggest thing about it. But here's the question, right? Have you ever spoken to ChatGPT in Spanish? Have you ever chat to it in Arabic? Okay. So that's the thing. Even if you think about it, the tools are not made completely to be diversified. So if you think, I mean, like if I grab it and if I write in Spanish to it, it will understand most of it because there's enough literature that it will know it. But the moment that I go into slang, it won't know it. But that means I have to be a very perfect Spanish-speaking person in order to speak to the prompt.
But that's a matter of time, isn't it? I mean, both the language and the slang. I think that the point you're making is a very fair point. It's another lowering the barriers of entry, as you say, allowing you to get started quicker, faster, allowing more people to get started.
I mean, if I think about it, you know, when I wrote my first opera, I basically had to go and hand draw every single thing that I wanted people to understand it. And I wrote basically a 350-page document with images and things like that I wanted to give them. I think about it right now and I go, if I was to redesign Yerka today, it will probably take me 3 weeks. Because I can just go in and create those images and I can go to Runway ML and put that image and then give it a prompt and then actually generate a video, and that will allow me to, you know, quick around with it and then drop it into Notch and then take it out and put a touch designer. Like, all these little things all of a sudden become so much easier. I mean, I don't know if you saw the guys from the Vant yesterday. That thing was awesome. Like, that was one of those things that I was like, I signed up to the beta immediately because I'm like, that is a tool that if I had available 10 years ago, it will make my life so much easier. But I'm like, well, I didn't have it, but now I'm going to have it, and that's going to be available for anybody. So I think that the ability of all these different tools, all of a sudden, if you don't know how to draw, you can draw. If you don't know how to write, you can write. If you don't know how to music, or you're able to create. They might not be the greatest stories in the world, right? They might not in the way that they're created, but they might be telling something that is an unheard voice.
It raises, I think, a rising tide raises all boats. So the entry level is going to get better, but the more advanced people are going to be able to do things more quickly. So, yeah, good conversation. Thank you for that question. I think there were some more questions. Yeah, over here.
Thanks so much for the panel. Appreciate it. I was wondering, actually, when you're talking about finding communities that are kind of underserved, targeting like for CG Pro, et cetera, like all these other things, like how do you go about that process and finding those communities? And maybe it's also, to the earlier point, not necessarily about finding people that have like the potential for something, but people that don't know they have the potential for something. And so I'm just kind of curious, like what that search process looks like.
Do you want to?
Okay. Well, I will say that I'm at the beginning of that journey, but the thing that I've started with is conversations. It's conversations with people like Barbara Marshall who have contacts to the DEI initiatives that she already has, and talking and seeing what Lux is doing and seeing what Tupac is doing, and if all of us come together and put our heads together, I think that helps me to understand how to expand that knowledge. And ultimately, one of my big initiatives will be to schools. And that's something that I'm working on pretty hard. But it's, for me, it's just going to take a little time, but it's definitely something that I think the younger that you can tell people that this exists, and also, you know, I put out ads, I put out, you know, like I'm trying to reach as much as I can through grassroots efforts, but certainly, you know, it's the big challenge, I think.
I can add a couple of comments unless you guys have something to say. Yeah, so I can speak from a corporate HP point of view, but also from a personal point of view. So from a corporate HP point of view, as I mentioned earlier, we have very specific proactive programs, both for our recruiting, but also just from a corporate citizen point of view, such as Bring Your Daughter to Work Day, supporting Black coders, supporting girls who code, and that's all done throughout the organization, individual contributor level, going out and being one of the mentors, but also then there's a company just supporting these organizations. I said we redesigned our intern program, so we specifically now recruit from a smaller number of universities, but a diverser range. So we, Texas A&M, Georgia Tech, places like that. And then we also have we were a founding member of the Historically Black Colleges and Universities symposium that's now been happening for 5 years. And so we work directly with the students to give them opportunities for developing businesses. So my suggestion that the corporate world can actually maybe help because they've got a lot of existing programs to tap into. From a personal point of view, I had a very varied career. I'm lucky because I'm naturally very nosy and very curious, and so I just, that looks interesting. Let me apply to do that. But my first job, I started off in a commodity trading company. I had no idea I wanted to be a commodity trader, and I quickly found out that I didn't want to be a commodity trader. But the way I was recruited is that the company, Louis Dreyfus Trading, used to come to my university every year and do a talk. That's how I discovered that opportunity existed. I applied and got the job. So I think to the point earlier, if you're looking to recruit, reach out to universities and colleges and schools and just, as you said, have conversations. You might not recruit somebody now, but you might find them later down the road. Just a suggestion. Any other comments?
No, I think that's great. I'm also seeing a lot of job postings that are being more clear about, if you don't think you qualify for all of these things, tell us your story, especially in game design studios.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that a lot. Tell us your story, tell us. And obviously that means they have more HR people. It's more work. It's not a computer. One of them says a human being will read your resume. I do think
Like
there's
last century, gosh.
imagine that it's not just all buzzwords. And so I do think that from a corporate standpoint, that's something that we can do to get those applications in the door.
And that's a really good point, actually. I notice now with job adverts coming out of HP and other corporate, they have such a laundry list of skills and requirements. I know, because I'm a girl, on the whole, girls, if we don't check the box of everything, we won't apply. So if you are advertising, don't have a great long laundry list. Just have the 2 or 3 key things, and then that way you're not going to be shutting down the people that don't have, a lot of people who don't have the confidence to put themselves out unless they can say 100% I can do the job.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I like about CG Empowers, is that I feel like if the more that you upskill and you're able to actually offer value to these companies, and you can come in and say, well, maybe I don't know everything about coding, but I know Unreal and I know some blueprints, then all of a sudden you are able to come in and get your first job in that industry because you're offering value. And that is why I think upskilling is so important.
The other thing I would love to add to that is, and this is more for people as individuals, really understand your transferable skills. That's something I've had to learn as I have had such a diverse career. And I have friends that laugh at me because they don't understand how I could go from commodity trading to the BBC or be in what I'm doing now. But I understand because I've the transferable skills. It's understanding technology and being able to explain that to a non-technical audience, communication skills. These are the transferable skills that everybody has. It's just looking at them slightly differently and showing how they can be applied to a different industry or a different discipline. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much, Tupac, and yeah. And my mind's just gone blank. Dani, and also Jackie. And really enjoyed the conversation from my position. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation.
Let's have a big hand for the panel. While we're getting ready for the next one, I'd love to play the